And we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Ragin' With. Tonight we're going to be talking Bubba Patrol right after this.
Ragin'.
Hello, and welcome back. Let me drop this card here. Hello. All right, Daphne, it's your turn.
Right. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ragin' With, which this time I made sure to know the name of the show before I started. So, thank you again for joining us. We're here with another great interview, but before we get started, a little intros to go around. So hello, my name is Daphne Lage, and I am a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I've been self-publishing comics since 1992, and I am known for the funny animal fantasy Tall Tales, you can see right here, and my medieval fantasy soap opera Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, which I have on pre-launch. The link should be in the show notes. You go to my website and the link is there. You can read both my comics online at Tall Tales, TILS online.com, and eagleworks.com, EGOWRKS. And you can check out all my videos on how I make these comics on my YouTube at Daphne Lage, Lage Art. And I am joined again by my producer and co-host, Nita Lanning. Take it away.
I'm Nita Lanning, and I'm a writer, vlogger, blogger from Southeast Louisiana, and you can't find my shit anywhere because it's not in my name. But there's stuff coming soon. So, yeah, there's that.
We're working on that, right? And also, Nita is going to be, because she is the producer, she will be handling the board, and she'll be watching the chat for us. So, if you want to see your chat, if you have any questions, just post them in the chat, especially if you're on YouTube. And if you're nice enough to her, she will post it on the screen there so we can all see it. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, because, why not? Sometimes the chat can come up with better questions than I can. So let's try that out. And we are joined today with John Anthony Soltero, because I don't know how to pronounce all your names.
It's all right.
But so introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are.
I'm John Anthony Chihak Soltero. I'm a Tucson native, and I have been self-publishing and creating comic books. We're going on 16 years now.
Ooh.
And since 2017, the Bubba Patrol has been my primary project and passion. And it is a tribute to my dogs, who have been like my little superheroes, my troopers throughout good and bad, since I was a freshman in high school. So I thought, this is what I do. I might as well do what I feel I do best and give them that legacy, so the world can see them how I see them.
So you've been at this for 16 years. So,
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I don't know. It's like I've done a lot of these, and I meet a lot of people who, like they say, oh, I started 5 years ago. It's like, it's kind of rare for me to hear people who've been in it for a long time. So to say 16 years, like, oh, well then. So what started you on this journey to do comics? As opposed to like any other type of medium, what was special about comics when you were growing up that led you on this path?
So unlike a lot of people, I don't recall reading a lot of comics when I was really young. Like I knew who Superman was and Spider-Man and Batman, stuff like that. But there's a specific issue, specific comic that really got me into the media. And it was probably around 7th or 8th grade. And back then you could go to a convenience store and they had comic books on the rack. And so I had bought a couple of books, nothing that was too spectacular. And then I bought a copy of Punisher War Journal number 44. And for whatever reason, that story and character resonated with me so much. I think it had a lot to do with being like an angry young man who was also just very confused about the world. And so I kind of latched onto that. But that not only got me into really liking that character, but loving the media of comic books. And so that flourished through the rest of junior high and high school, where I took some animation classes, which I really enjoyed, and decided I wanted to pursue a career in comic books. And after dropping out of college, basically after one piddly semester, I just kind of like messed around and I don't want to say had go nowhere jobs, but they weren't going to help me get where I wanted to go. And sitting in coffee shops on a nightly basis, just drawing in my sketchbook, and with this weird thought process that somebody from Marvel or DC was going to walk in and be like, "We need you." And I'm like, that ain't going to happen. So there was a huge life event in 2001 that completely changed the trajectory of where I was. And I had been diagnosed with bone cancer in my leg. And so couldn't work, was on crutches, had to go through chemo, radiation, everything like that. And that was when I kind of thought, like, you got to take this seriously. You got to go back to school. And I saw an ad in a comic book. I don't remember which book it was, but it was for the Joe Kubert School of Comic Book Art and Graphic Design. And they were starting a correspondence course at that point. And I was super excited about it. I was like, it's only $300. You know, I told my mom about it. I was showing her the ad, and she's just like, honey, you know, a correspondence course for art is probably not going to work super well. And she was right. I mean, now if we did it and you could do it online, it'd be like way different. You know, you get critiques right away. You'd be caught up with everything. But if you're mailing stuff back and forth, that takes so long. And so we went and looked around Tucson and found a school that I decided would help suit my needs, and enrolled, went for 3.5 years, got out with a bachelor's in animation, and just kind of motored on, and, you know, through my own gumption and racking up credit card debt along the way, I started doing the comic books myself. So, and that the first book launched in 2006, and it was a project called Euthanasia. That was my really edgy street level crime, superhero, sexy girls, you know, just like mid-20s, like that's what I thought I had to do to, you know, because I thought that was my story. And right. And while those characters are going to come back around, it's not going to be quite the same as it was when I do that.
So, I mean, I find it kind of, because the thing with your mom kind of went someplace that I usually don't expect, because it's like, usually I'm used to parents going, like, kind of poo-pooing, you know, any attempt at trying to do art. And instead, she looked at the correspondence course and realized that wasn't going to be the best way for you to learn it. So it's like, it's kind of like she understood what you were going for.
My mom's always been super supportive of me being a creator. When I was in high school, I played football for a few years. And of course, you know, as a mom, she was super concerned I was going to get hurt. And then when I stopped doing that, she was concerned again, because that had been something that consumed me for like 3 years. And she was really happy when I got back into drawing and creating, because that's what I'd been doing almost my entire life. And so she always supported, like, I'm pretty sure she still has like all the like little like college ruled notebook paper books that I made when I was little. She's got every single copy of my comic, every single book that I've ever done, save for 2, because I don't want mom to have those, because I don't know how she'd feel about them.
Right. Yeah. There's always those pieces of artwork that mom doesn't need to know about. Right.
Yeah. And actually that's where Soltero comes from. That's my mom's maiden name. And as tribute to the woman who raised me, but also because of the Chicano culture, like, you add your mom's name. So like legally that's not my name, but like that is who I am, John Anthony Chihak Soltero. So.
Yeah, it's like Spanish. Yeah, Spanish names are kind of like yeah. I had the same issue before my mom changed my name when because I was born in Spain. So, and we kind of have the same issue with names, where it's like, it's the mother's name, it's the father's name, but the last name's different, and yeah, it's a whole thing. And so, what? No, go ahead.
Going back to like what you were saying about parents like poo-pooing on things, and I first got to preface this by saying my dad is super supportive of what I do now. He gets it. And when I told him I was going back to school, like, his eyes lit up. And then when I told him it was art and design school, that like it went from 100% to like 70. He was like, oh. Yeah. And I don't think he fully understood what I was doing until I started producing the Bubba Patrol specifically. Like, he was proud of me for going to school. He was proud of me for getting the degree, but it wasn't until he saw that specific product in his hands that he, like, it clicked, and he was just like, okay. And he's been super supportive, like, kind of contributing to the campaign on like the back end without question, and just saying, so what do you need to make sure that this happens? And if you don't make it in here, just let me know, and we'll make sure that, you know, you're able to fund this. So I got to say that even though and then that's kind of a nice story too, because it's our journey together as father and son, and like him being able to be a part of what I'm doing now.
So you said that your first published book was a book called Euthanasia, right? So you started off with The Punisher being.
Are we saying youth in Asia or euthanasia?
Right.
No, yeah. Youth in Asia.
Okay. All right. We're good now. All right. Okay. Right. Either way, the title was great, but it's just like next level shit. You know, it makes
originally it was going to be called Helter Skelter, and then I think there was like a manga called Helter Skelter, and then I was going to call it Sleeper, and then Brubaker's Sleeper came out, and I'm like, okay. And then I named it Euthanasia, and I think there was a manga called Euthanasia, and by then I was just like, I'm not changing it another time. Like,
right, yeah. There just comes a point where it's like you have to just commit, and that's it.
Plus, nobody read my book anyways, so it really didn't matter if it infringed on a copyright.
Right. So when you did this first book, I mean, what was like? So did you go to conventions? Was it like an online thing? I mean, what kind of like was your experience after printing your first comic? Like, what was that like?
So I've been really fortunate here in town to have the support of a couple of local comic shops that have had me in for signings and events. He doesn't have a brick and mortar anymore, but Charlie Harris, who owns Charlie's Comic Books in Tucson, he was the first person to invite me in. When I told him I had an idea for a book, he didn't even ask me what it was. He was like, bring it in, I'll sell it for you. And so there's been some shops here in town like them, Harley's Toys and Comics, and a few others that are willing to give me a shot and have me be a part of their community. But But then it wasn't until 2008, so 14 years ago, that I did my first convention at Phoenix Comic Con, back when it was still in the Mesa Convention Center. And that was an experience. Like, it went really, really well, which is almost a detriment, because I assumed that that would just be how it always goes, right? Like, you're going to be selling books hand over fist, and people are going to love your work and everything. And then there was, there was a few years of just lulls. And those were kind of heartbreaking to take, in terms of like, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should just quit. I'm a pretty passionate person, so I take these like crazy extremes on things. Like, I'm either diving in head first and not watching what's going on, or I'm just like, eh.
So we went with The Punisher being your formative book, and then, like you said, you did like your edgy, I guess, your edgy comic, right? So how do we get from The Punisher to a comic, an all ages comic about puppies fighting monsters or something?
So that's an amazing question. Like, and the trip down that is equally interesting. 2012 was doing Phoenix Comic Con for like the 4th or 5th year in a row. And a few years prior to that, I put out a book called Fuzzy Face, which features the Agnew character as a Leatherface type protagonist or antagonist, going after Muppet knockoffs and like wearing their faces as his own. And so he's been the character that bridges the gap. He's my Mickey Mouse, like he's my icon. And so, having had a dog that saw me through high school, college, cancer, publishing a first couple of issues before I had to say goodbye to her, the decision was made to start working on the project in 2012. And I didn't know, was it going to be a kid's book? I knew how much work went into a comic book. And it almost broke my heart thinking about, like, you don't want to do a comic book because this is how all your other work has been received. And if you put that much effort into something that's this personal and it's not received well, like, that's it. Like, you're probably going to burn yourself out completely. So I kind of tested the waters with a print of 3 of the dogs floating in space in their costumes, and a 1-page comic strip. And then that con passed, and I was in the midst of doing like a 3-issue story with euthanasia, and things for me personally started kind of spinning out of control. I had a really bad alcohol habit. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse, until one day I woke up and said, that's it. That's enough. Like, stop it. And by that point, Cypress, my first dog, had died in 2008. My second dog, Sabu, had died in 2013, so a year after that. And I had Gurry and Foley left, and adopted Grayson in 2013, and decided to get sober, and got through a full year. I was like, okay, you should write the script now. Wrote the script, printed it, put it on my desk. It's in a physical form. I can't ignore it, right? And stuff started stacking on top of it. I wasn't doing anything. I'm a little over a year sober. I've decided to become straight edge. Like, quit smoking like 6 months before. Like, everything's going great. I decide to go get a tattoo. And I come back from getting the tattoo, and Gurry is dead.
Oh.
And so at that point, it wasn't so much you should do the comic book. It was, you've got to do this. Like, she deserves this legacy. Foley and Grayson deserve it. Sabu and Cypress deserve it. And so that's when I like dusted it off, started doing all the thumbnails and roughs, doing the mock-ups and everything, and got that sucker finished pretty quickly. Put it on Kickstarter in, I forget when it was, I think it was like August, and it was fully funded in 24 hours, but we had like a super low goal because all I wanted to do was print a handful of copies for Tucson Con. And we ended up printing like 300 something copies. We're 400% funded, and was at that point it was kind of like off to the races. And so the book became super organic at that point. Like all the characters have a unique voice. I basically come up with like a concept, and it just like builds on itself. It's really strange the way it happens. I've struggled with writing like the euthanasia characters for years and trying to get them specific way. And these dogs, like, just, you put them in a situation and they just start reacting to it. And it's so funny the way it happens. But it's their personalities, like their real life personalities shine and show up in the comic.
Right. So this, I mean, it's like, I've heard the phrase passion project bandied around so much, but this sounds like the actual definition.
Yeah, this is a passion project.
This is a passion project.
Right.
And like, not only that, but it's like the fact that you even have a completely different, like, the story just flows from it, as opposed to your other story where I guess, is it fair to say you kind of struggled with it because you were...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because you have an idea of what you want to do,
right? And
executing it, like, what you visualize isn't always what comes out in the finished product. And with the Bubba Patrol, if it doesn't come out the way I visualize it, it's damn close. Like,
right.
It's spot on. Last year, when we were working on issue 4 and issue 5 are actually the same issue. Like, I wrote it as a 40-page story.
Oh, okay.
But when I got to page 26 of pencils, I was like, that's the stopping point for issue 4. And so then I only had 14 pages. So I'm like, you got to beef this up. And so I added some backstory, and even that flowed because I was trying to figure things out and, like, didn't want to force it. And it just happened. And it was really, really neat the way it happened as well.
Right. So now for what I've seen of the Bubba Patrol, so why don't... so it's like, so for everybody who's never heard of this book before, can you give like kind of like a...
What's your pitch, man? What's your pitch?
My pitch?
Yeah. What is Bubba Patrol?
The Bubba Patrol is a throwback to the Silver and Bronze Age, before books had to be grim and gritty or overtly sexual in order to catch your attention. It's highly colorful. The characters are super fun, and the dialogue is intriguing to the point that it's super realistic and cohesive. But bare bones, it is the story of a group of dogs that prove that the greatest superpower is not flight or invulnerability, it's heart, and that they are actually powered by hope.
I mean, which is... Yeah, which I guess is like, that's what makes the book stand out so much when I see it, because, like, you look at the Kickstarter landscape or the crowdfunder, because you're on Indiegogo, so it's like, you look at the crowdfunder landscape, and it's a very, and sometimes it just feels like we're just inundated with a very specific kind of book.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you come to Bubba Patrol, and it just, like, just pops right out, because it's like you have everybody. mind you, I'm speaking very generally here, so if anyone in the chat wants to correct me, I understand. I'm speaking very generally. That, it's like everybody wants to be, like, I guess, like, dark and gritty and sexy, and blah, blah, which is, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But to actually see someone like you making the decision that it's like, I am going to write a book, and it's not necessarily you went out to do a all ages book. It's just that this is the story that I'm telling, and it's like, and I want it to be hopeful and happy and very much, like, everybody can enjoy it no matter who picks it up. And did at any point you feel like you're kind of like, again, like looking at the landscape and like going, you're gonna have the same problem you did with euthanasia, where it's like you kind of felt out of place or with your book?
That's, I think as a creator, there's always a little bit of and again, this is kind of a generalization, but any good creator is going to have some doubt.
Right.
Because as confident as I am in the product and the story, my issue becomes that self-promotion. Like if people know me in real life, like I'm kind of a loudmouth. Like, I talk a lot. My therapist probably is just like, all right, I know you're here to talk, but like, let's slow down a little bit. But all I feel I need to do is get you to read it. I've had people tell me, they're like, yeah, if I saw this on the rack, no way I would pick it up. But I know you, I want to support you, or I met you somewhere and I wanted to support a local artist. I've never had somebody read this book and say,
right.
Like, everybody who's read it has gleaned something from it. I would say probably the only negative thing that I might have gotten from anybody is not enough cats.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Feline erasure.
I had somebody who bought it for her nieces, and her only note coming back afterwards was like, they want cats. They don't care if the cat is the bad guy. They just want cats. And I'm like, have I got good news for you?
Well, at least that's a criticism you can work with, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the other thing is somebody might, say, oh, it's a little silly, or not really understand the difference between it being a children's book and all ages. And that's something, explaining that to somebody,
right? Yeah,
they might not get it. And for me, the definition of that is the difference between rated G and PG. So the difference between like a really, really saccharine kids movie and a Pixar movie,
right,
where Pixar gives you emotion and puts the characters in real life without it being adult,
right.
Like, it doesn't have to be grotesque in order for it to be real. Hold on a second. This little guy wants to be part of the video.
Here we go.
What's up, dude? Introduce yourself.
This is Grayson. He is one of the Bubbas and one of my main inspirations. And he gets to be a big part of issue 5, I have to say. So if you like cute and fluffy dogs coming into their own, like, this is going to be the issue for you. So
there you go. So here we have the real life inspiration. And is it? I'm pretty sure. Like, it's. I just can't believe that someone could look at Bubba Patrol and complain that, oh, it looks silly. like it's kind of like they're confusing, like, because it's like, well, if you look at it, it's like, it's a very cartoony style, And it's like a lot of, like you said, a lot of bright colors and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, really? You were expecting like grimdark or something on this? I don't understand.
I have talked to some people, and not people involved in like necessarily backing the book or reading the book, but
Right.
well, my dad. But so we talked about some stuff because the motivation for this book is love and loss of
Yeah.
my pets. I don't look at them as pets. I don't even look at them as like dogs. They're part of my family. And so when we discuss certain elements, my dad asked me specifically if they were going to be brought up. Is it they pass or is it they die? And I had to think about that. And
Right.
part of real life is that we have to deal with loss. So I won't use the term pass away in the book, because when a kid is reading something, they may not understand what pass away means. You know, like that might get lost in translation somewhere, but death is death. But it's not something that has to be like, you have to be scared of or feared, like, because if you remember somebody or something, it's always there. Like those moments will always be with you. And that's kind of what I get with creating this. And there was, speaking of like, you know, gritty or whatever, there's a battle scene in issue 5, and it's the first battle scene I've drawn with these characters. And I was thinking it was like, in my head when I was writing it, it was going to be this big climactic, over the top, you know, Avengers in the MCU kind of thing. And when I started writing it, I was just like, that's not the point of this book. That's not the direction these characters go. And so you get action, but it's definitely different than most people might think about it. So
Yeah, no, definitely. John is saying kids don't want to be talked down to; they resent it, and it's like, and, yeah. And what's funny is that a lot of some people would say that it's like, oh, they want things to be gritty because it's more realistic. But the way you're talking about it, it's like, wait a minute, that sounds more realistic than any, you know, grimdark, you know, edgy comic
yeah.
that's out there. You know? So yeah, so it's kind of like, yeah, the emotional resonance is realistic.
Yeah. Professionally speaking, outside of comics, I've worked as a social worker for about 15 years. And in doing so, based on your clientele, you have to know how to talk to somebody. I've worked with adults with developmental disabilities. I've worked with kids who were in the system. I've worked with women and children who were in domestic violence situations. And now I work with the aging population. And it's not just every demographic that's different, it's every person that's different. So if I'm talking to somebody who doesn't comprehend what I'm telling them, and I'm telling them something I feel is kind of in plain English, like I have to find their level. And with the Bubba Patrol, I feel like this is something that speaks to people on a lot of different levels. I mean, when issue number 2 was being proofed by my editor, my sister, I sat down at Christmas, and I think my nephew was 4 at the time, so he couldn't read. And we're flipping through the Xerox printed pages, and I'm reading the book to him, and he may or may not be paying attention, but he's looking at the visuals and he's cracking up. And as soon as I finish it, he grabs it and hands it back to me, and he's like, read it again. And so that's when I really understood that, like, this was going to be something that anybody of any age, whether or not they read, whether or not it's their first comic book, whether or not they're, you know, somebody who's been collecting for 30 years, they not only will get it, but they will enjoy it because of the dynamism of
yeah, it's like, I can't pronounce it either.
of the visual and the written. And I think that's also why I tend to go with getting this printed on newsprint. So we're looking at something that looks like nostalgic. It feels nostalgic. And whenever I get those shipped to me and I open them up, the first thing I do is I smell it.
Yeah.
Because the ink and the paper.
Yeah. I remember those days. Yeah. So stylistically, what would you say, like, your influence is on your artwork? I mean, because it's like, again, it's like we're not talking it's like, you're talking about how you were influenced by the Punisher, but that's not how the book looks either. So it's like,
yeah.
So what's your artistic influence for the book?
If we're talking strictly the Bubba Patrol, if you read issue 1 and then you read issue 2, the style changes not a ton, but it changes enough that it's noticeable. Mm-hmm. So I've always been a fan of, like, not necessarily the story or the music or anything, but like Don Bluth, like Secret of Nim, and like, I know it's not Don Bluth, I know it's Disney, but like Lady and the Tramp, like,
right.
The characters had these like big saucer eyes, and they were detailed enough, but they weren't too detailed that it got lost. And coming from a background in animation, that's like what you have to do. You can't make something incredibly detailed because, like, that's gonna suck to draw 9,000
right, yeah,
times.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's kind of like my primary influence. Agnew hasn't really changed so much, except his character has changed, not really his visual. Like, he's become way more like comedic, but the dogs have all like turned into these more like Bluthian type creations, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that's a good point. Classic 2D animation. I'm a big fan of 2D animation. Like,
yeah.
I like 3D animation, don't get me wrong, but like, if you can tell the same story in 2D, like that's where my heart is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that too. So you have a Indiegogo coming up.
Yeah.
So it's going to be launching somewhere like the first week of February. Okay. So before we get into that, because I just realized that we're already past our half-hour mark. So we're gonna do a little bump here, and then we're gonna talk more about your upcoming campaign. So
I'm gonna show some love to my dudes. George
absolutely,
and Sam.
Absolutely.
Gotta share it and spread it.
It's Monty Moore. I'm a 30-year comics veteran in comics, games, and movies, and you've been watching one of my absolute favorite podcasts, Catch the Craze.
You are watching Catch the Craze.
What am I listening to?
And you're listening to Catch the Craze.
Where are all the indies at? A Catch the Craze podcast. What are you watching?
I'm watching Catch the Craze.
What are you going to do?
Subscribe now to Catch the Craze, the #1 show online for independent.
Have you subscribed to?
You are an independent. Catch the Craze! Making moves on your own. Catch the Craze! On your grind in the streets. Catch the Craze! Join the movement. Catch the Craze!
Best show ever. Totally watch
exactly.
those guys.
Yeah,
totally watch
definitely. So where did I leave off? Oh, yes. So you have a campaign coming up the first week of February.
Yeah.
Is there an exact date yet, or?
Yeah, we're going to be launching February 7th, Monday the 7th. So.
Oh, okay. And do you have a launch page up yet for everyone to sign up for?
I do. Yeah. So I'll go ahead. Are you guys able to see that?
Yeah, it's not on your page yet, though. All right, there we go. All right.
Okay.
So it's like so here is the campaign hasn't launched yet. This is just the back end, but there is a launch page. I guess we're gonna put a link in the comments whatever the box is, the notes, the show notes down there.
There you go.
Yeah. So this is everyone's getting a sneak peek of the campaign. So this is for issue 5, And you're looking at a $500 flexible goal, which obviously, judging from your previous campaigns, you're not going to have a problem reaching that. So, so what is the, I guess if you want to like start walking, just walking through, like, I guess like the generalities of this campaign and what people can expect from it.
Okay. So, you know, we've got the basics. I always call it the basic, or the Bubba basics, where you get, you know, your copy of the book. It's a floppy. For the first time ever, we're actually going to do digital copies. And for $15, you're going to get the entire saga. This will, you know, talking to some people and getting ideas, it's going to give me the opportunity to get this like across the pond. Shipping nowadays is so crazy that like there's no way to do that physically. So if you're into digital comics, you'll be able to read this and like feel the love.
And another good thing to note for all the creators out there, digital, 100% profit on your campaigns, guys. Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's and that's what prompted me to do it was you guys just being like, I love physical copies of the book.
Well, sure, we all do.
But it's not always about what you want as a creator. It's about being able to expand to get that audience. Some people don't consume physical media, and you know, that's cool too. I just want people to read this because I know they're going to love it. So you're also getting some imagery of the book itself, and one of my favorite images and lines comes from Foley, and he says he needs our help. That's what we do. We're heroes, right? And that's the definition of these characters. Like, they do what they do because they're heroes. And so we've got a really cool variant as well from a local to Tucson creator named JoJo Seams. She's not only the creator of a comic book called The Makeshift Man, but she also has been doing MetaZoo trading cards. And she's getting a really good name for herself. And when I approached her and asked her about this, she was totally game for it. And the image she came up with for this was one of my favorite pieces I think I've ever seen. And also the first time somebody is rendering Hoyo Jira in their style. This is the first time you're going to see that as well. And it'll be super limited. We're going to do 30 copies total, like we did with the variants last year. And it will come with a matching certificate of authenticity. And there's not going to be any printed beyond that. So once those are allotted, they're done. Like, I'm not going to reprint it, you know, and that's it. And I've got 25 spaces for that because we're going to do some other promotions and stuff as well that you'll see coming up. Of course, you got to have your catch-up tier. We've got spaces for advertisements for retailers and other content creators. If you're doing stuff online, YouTube or whatever, that's family friendly or all ages friendly, you're more than welcome to submit for having an ad in my book. I love helping promote people because it also helps me. And then one of my favorite things that we're doing is these mystery doggy bags. And they're going to have...
Perfect.
Thank you. I did them I didn't call it Black Friday. I called it Bubba Friday. And the promotion was you get a pre-sketched sketch cover or deluxe rebark. I don't call them remarks. They're rebarks.
Oh, that's
and,
so funny.
And so you get an original piece of artwork. You get a limited variant. Some of the variants from the last campaign that we did, including a Vic Hollins variant, Bill Simpson variant. We had a retailer incentive variant that went in there as well. And now you're also going to get a full set. So you're going to get issues 1 through 5, and then you're going to get those extras that are thrown in there. And, you know, just some more ads and stuff like that. And you get to see more artwork coming in. And one of my favorite things right here is Follow the Bouncing Hero. Was done to perfection by artists like Mike Maringo and Scott McDaniel, and I had to add it into my book, and especially with how much fun it is to draw Agnew. Getting him to do motion like that just really captures his personality. And then we've got
obviously, you know, he's supposed to look like a certain someone.
Yeah. And that's kind of the little joke. Like he is also finding his identity in this story. Like his hair is usually down, it's usually straggly. But a lot of people, I actually have him as a physical sidekick. Like he exists in the real world, not just the comic book world. And, you know, he used to travel around with me, goes to conventions with me. Sometimes people like to take pictures with him. This couple months ago, we bought him a little superhero costume so he can dress like Captain America, like on the cover of issue 4. But yeah, he gets down with what's going on. Like he's on the front lines with the Bubbas as well.
Huh. Right. Yeah. So, go back to your stretch goals. There was something there that really caught my attention that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So, so you have, here we go. The 100 backers, the read along. So tell me about that and what inspires you to do that. Oh, and please excuse the parrot in the background. So what's the, so tell me about that read. Oh, thank you. So tell me about that.
So the read along is going to be me filming a video and uploading it to YouTube, but only the people who back the campaign to get to 100 backers are going to get that link.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Or at least for probably 6 months or so. So you get an exclusive, and then we might release it to the general public. Depends on how poorly I do this. I'm going to read issues 4 and 5 because it's a cohesive story. And I will do so reading it using the character voices as well. Because for years I've been creating the identities for these different dogs, and they all have very, very unique voices. And I think people kind of get a kick out of that when I make the dogs talk, and you'll just be able to be there live kind of thing, experiencing it. Kind of like an audiobook, I guess, but like an audio play.
Right. And okay, so it's so is it going to be you on the video reading, or are you going to have images going through because you said it was like an audiobook, but is there going, because it's video, is there going to be imagery or
So I will do my darndest to figure out, because I'm not super tech savvy, but I will do my darndest to make it so that you get to read along on the images. At the very, very least, it's going to be, maybe the camera pointed at the book. So real low tech. And then just, flipping the pages as I read the story along. So you can kind of read along.
Right. So with your animation background, is there any Bubba animation in the near future?
That is something that I've really wanted to do, even really short animation, like a few seconds. Once I finish issue 5, once it's in the can, once we've got it printed and fulfilled, I'm going to be working on some stuff, and I think doing some small animations would not be out of the question. I do have Clip Studio. I love Clip Studio, so I think it would be beneficial to maybe do a small character animation of each of the characters, maybe give a few seconds of them in costume and fur blowing in the wind, looking super heroic kind of thing.
Right. So the thing. What type of animation did you study in school? Obviously, some kind of 2D, but is it literally hand drawn and then the camera, or is it something that's all digital, or like really quick about your animation process?
Yeah, it's actually both. When I went to school in high school, we did flip book and cut paper, and we had the camera above, and you click the pictures and you move it a little bit, or take the page off. In college, it was both. It was 2D flip book, and then it was Maya Studio, which I don't think anybody uses anymore. And then for portfolio, our 2D stuff we learned in one program, and then all of a sudden last semester, they're like, oh, never mind. Nobody uses that. We're going to use this. And it's just like, all right. So we switched programs at the last minute. And so, yeah, it's a combo of 2D and 3D, although 2D, like I said, is definitely going to be the route I go with this. Like, right. And if it ever was 3D, I'd want it with that 2D cell shading, just because I love the way that looks.
Right. Yeah. 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 So okay. So as I guess we stated before, so this campaign is going to launch on February 7th, right? February 7th.
Correct.
And there's a pre-launch page right now that everybody can sign up for on Indiegogo. So that you get notified when the campaign goes live, so you don't miss out. And you know what? It's like, yeah, let's get him the 100 backers so that we can see this read along.
Yes.
So you have to hear my voice in like 5 different voices.
Yeah.
And I still haven't figured. I've had Agnew for 27 years. I haven't figured out what his voice sounds like yet.
Right.
Like, I thought I had it at one point, and it's somewhere between like Chucky and there used to be a radio personality in Tucson named Stags McNasty, and like it was kind of like a combination of those two, but like hopefully I'll figure it out by then.
Right.
Give us an attempt. Give us an attempt.
Oh God, no.
Do it.
She's been trying to get me to do that too, because that's
Please, Andy, it's dark in here.
There you go. It's working. It's working. Come on, man. Practice makes perfect.
That was just Chucky. That wasn't necessarily Agnew reading anything. So.
Right. Yeah, because I'm working on an audiobook as well, and it's like, yeah, the whole thing with the voices, and it's like just like kind of like getting used to reading, like hearing your own words out loud.
Yeah.
And the thing is, so have you done that? I guess it's like, in anticipation of doing this, like, have you experimented with reading your work out loud and like realizing, oh, maybe I should change that, or that sounds weird, or have you done that? Have you had that experience?
So these dogs from Sabu onward, Cypress sounds just very like serene and tranquil, like she doesn't get worked up about anything.
Hold on, I got.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mute that. And it's
all
everybody talk over. We don't need a copyright strike.
Next time I'll just start screaming randomly.
Yeah, I know. Really.
No. Okay,
I'm sorry about that. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I've been doing these voices for years. That was kind of like one of the things I did when I was a kid. You do voices, you create characters, and honestly, after every single issue is printed, first thing I do is I take a chair outside and I sit under the tree where Gurry is buried and where Foley is now buried, and I read the books out loud to them, and I use the voices, and that's part of like how I process everything. And I gotta be honest, that's pretty much the last time I read any of my books. I'm one of those people, like, it's not like forget about it, I'm moving forward. It's just I'm also hypercritical of everything. So when I flip through something again and I see little mistakes here and there, like, it just gets to me. But also at the same time, like, I lived through creating that. And it is such a part of me that it, like, even if I never read those books again, like, that never goes away. And those voices and characters are always going to stick with me. So, so reading it potentially in an audience where people, and it won't be live, because I don't know if I could take the hit to the ego with like people booing me because the character doesn't sound the way they think it should sound.
Right. Yeah.
It'll be pre-recorded before it gets put up.
Okay, that's cool. So on that note, I mean, it's like this hour just flew by. And I want to thank you again for coming on our show. And why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? Of course, links will be
we'll put them in the show notes.
In the show notes below. But why don't you go ahead and tell us where everyone can find you?
Well, again, I'm John Anthony Chihak Soltero. You can find me on Facebook, although I don't know if you want to follow me on Facebook. You can find the Bubba Patrol if you just look up the Bubba Patrol on Facebook, Instagram at Bubba Patrol. Those are my two major ways of getting new artwork and news out about the books. I also post in a number of groups on Facebook too. So if you're not part of that, then you should probably be seeing it around somewhere. But I'd really like to bump those numbers up so that we get more attention and more eyes on the product. So those are my two big selling points, Instagram and Facebook. One of these days it'll be a website. One of these days.
Okay.
I do have a YouTube as well. It doesn't have as much to do with the Bubba Patrol, although when issue 3 came out, I did an unboxing of issue 3 and like almost had to stop the camera because I started tearing up.
Oh, yeah. It never grows old opening up those boxes.
No.
Printer, does it?
That one was a real emotional story in and of itself. But I haven't done it in a while, but I do start to do reviews where I call it Grade That Comic, where I review a storyline or a specific issue or something, and I grade it on a 10.0 scale, like CGC and CBCS.
Right.
And I kind of break it down without trying to give too many spoilers, like coming from an animation background and a design background, like we gave critiques and you could say, I don't like it, but you had to back up why you didn't like it. So it's more along those lines than me saying, oh, here's the plot synopsis. Like, now you don't need to read it.
Okay, so there you go. So there we go. Bubba Patrol, February 7th. On Indiegogo. So make sure you sign up for the pre-launch page. So again, I want to thank John for being on our show. I've been your host, Daphne. And if you want to learn more about my artwork, you can head over to my main portfolio site at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS, where you can find links to all of my galleries and social media sites. But mostly I post to Facebook if you all want to see like sketches and current work in progress and whatnot. And again, you can also find my videos on my YouTube channel at Daphne Lage Art. And Nita, where can everybody find you again?
You can find me all over social media as Creating Chaos 24/7 on Twitter at C_chaos247. And you can get in touch with me from raginavc@gmail.com.
There you go. So, there you have it. Another great interview, another great hour. And I just want to remind everybody to support and buy independent comics, especially ours. So we'll see everybody on the next episode. So thanks a lot. Nita, any last words?
Yep, I'm throwing the dudes.
There you go.
Hey there, this is Meredith Loughran with RAGIN, and I wanted to let you know that we encourage and promote independent creators and their projects through organic interaction, consultations, and more. Visit Nita and me at RAGINAVC.com for details and contact information. Hit the button.